Hello everyone, this is Kirk Nelson with Brilliant Twisted Skulls. In this installment of Chainmail Tips, Tricks, and Ring Flips, we'll be discussing Embracing Gens Pinned. This is a sheet weave of another weave known as Gens Pinned Linkage 3, also referred to as JPL 3. Now this is a true, Embracing Gens Pinned is actually a true sheet weave of that single unit weave, JPL, as you can see here, as opposed to this, which is a bolted sheet of JPL 3. You can see 3 rows of JPL all connected with a single link, just like this. So this is not a true sheet weave. This is what's called a bolted sheet weave. But this Embracing Gens Pinned is actually a true sheet weave. Let's talk about some of the characteristics of this weave. It's kind of an interesting one. As you can see, it will lay flat. However, it has some very interesting characteristics. In one direction, you can roll it up like this. It's flexible in most directions. As you can see, you can bend it. And yet in another direction, if you put any tension on it, it becomes very rigid. You can see, that's as far as I can spin that. If you look at, here's a smaller section of it. So it's you can twist it in one direction, but it becomes very rigid. That's as far as I can twist that in this direction. Very attractive weave, but probably not very useful for armor, just because it does have some of that rigidity in one direction, but it may. When it's twisted into this position, it's very flexible. It has a lot of fluidity, but it definitely has some drawbacks. But it does make some very cool cuffs and rigid pieces if you're looking for that. The other thing I've discovered is that it makes a really cool square weave. So this is basically 4 rows of JPL 3 woven and Embracing Gens Pinned into a tube. And it's twisty again in this one direction. And then it becomes very solid in the other. It creates this kind of a square looking tube. It's pretty cool. Well, let's talk about. I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of weaving of this. I'm not going to go into all the details. This is a really difficult weave to start, and it's really hard to show this in a video. So what I've done is I've created a written tutorial that gives all the details on how to weave this, how to start and continue, and the necessary ARs to weave this. But I'll just go ahead and show you quickly some of the techniques for weaving this. And realize this is woven outside of the normal range of JPL. So if you weave a row of this, just a single row of JPL, just like this, in the AR, in the aspect ratio or the AR necessary for Embracing Gens Pinned, it will not hold this shape. It'll just fall out of place. So there are some tricks to actually being able to weave this. Once you get it started, though, it's not too bad. It's pretty easy to continue. So here's the first link, and what I do is we're starting with the very first row. So this would be the first row that I actually started. You can see where I've got rings connected here. That is the very first rings that I wove when creating this piece. And then to continue, we want to make sure that we're stacking in those rows, so you can see that we're staying on top of the previous ring, this ring on top of this ring, and then we're going to come back with this ring on top of this ring, just like we had normally weaved JPL. Oh, let's get that back into position. We'll go ahead and close that, and we're going to weave 3 of these. And again, weave 3 of these. So again, you see that stacking, this ring on top of this ring, and then this ring is going to be on top of its row of rings while connecting to 2 rings. So that's our second ring. And then we want to go ahead and do the same thing here. We want to make sure that our rows stay where they're supposed to, especially as you get to the next row. If those are out of alignment, it creates a bit of a problem weaving this. So here again, we have this ring is now on top of this ring. Yeah, if we can get it to stay in place. And then let's go ahead and start the next row. And you're going to want to do this every time you want to actually just do a three ring section for each row, starting with the very first row and then moving on to the next row, and then of course just maintaining that stacking. And so here we go. This is going to be a loose ring. It means we're not connecting it to that first row. We're going to weave another loose ring. Again, not connecting to that first row, maintaining the again that proper stacking orientation. Okay, and so you can see here, this is stacked on top of this one, and that one is stacked on top of the one behind it, making sure you're staying in the same row. And then this one again is going to be stacked. And it looks different. You're actually coming under this one, but normally if you're weaving a single row, you'd actually have this row would be flipped over, and you'd actually be weaving this on top of this other ring. But from this perspective, to be able to weave it, you need to have it in this position. And then you're going to catch the last ring that was woven in the first row. And so get that in there. And now you have 2 rows continued. And then let's go ahead and back down to this third row. We'll do the same thing. And so we're going to make sure that our next row is appropriately stacked. So 1, 2, and this will be 3. And it's stacked on top of the previous ring in its row. And then you just always want to just kind of come back and make sure that's right, in the right location. So there again, 1, 2, 3 stacked right on top of each other. One on top of the other. And then here again, we want to make sure that we have that same stack. So now we're going 1, 2, 3. Again, that's our JPL row stacking configuration. So now we've just woven 2 loose rings, and then again, here's another third ring, and this one's going to go underneath just like the one before. And now instead of catching the last ring, we're actually going to be catching the second ring back. So we're going to be hooking that last ring because that's actually the third ring in the previous row. So this one, the ring that we were weaving into, or the last ring in this row before we started with our 2 loose rings, is connected to this ring in this row, and that's the same ring, and we want to connect to the same row with this ring. So we do that. And now we've continued all 3 rows of this section of JPL, and we can just keep doing that. Again, if you want to learn how to weave this from starting and get all of the details, head over to our Etsy shop at Brilliant Skulls on Etsy, and we'll have a full tutorial with clear pictures and clear descriptions on how to start and continue this this weave, as well as the exact ARs that are and ring sizes that are effectively usable for this weave. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook at Brilliant Twisted Skulls. If you like this video and want to see more, Please subscribe and